Lily Parker had always loved shooting. From the moment she first held a rifle, she felt a calm wash over her, a quiet feeling that made everything else fade away. As a little girl, she would watch the birds in the morning and imagine her bullets flying straight and true, imagining the satisfaction of hitting a target she couldn't even see yet. Her father, David, noticed her fascination early on and took her to the range when she was 10. It wasn't just about teaching her to shoot. It was about patience, focus, and believing in herself, even when things seemed impossible. The range smelled of gunpowder and fresh-cut grass. Sunlight danced on the metal of the targets, and a soft wind whispered through the trees. David would stand beside her, always calm, and give small, simple instructions. Steady your hands, Lily. Watch the wind. Feel the weight of the rifle. Listen to your breath. He never raised his voice. He never shouted. But every word carried the weight of experience and love. Lily learned quickly that shooting was more than a skill, it was a test of patience, courage, and self-control. As she grew older, the challenges became harder. The targets moved farther away, the shots became longer, and the expectations grew. Friends would come and go at the range, many laughing or rushing through, trying to impress each other with speed and power. But Lily found a strange kind of peace in taking her time. Every time she aimed, every time she adjusted her stance or held her breath, she felt a deeper connection to the rifle and to herself. It was almost as if the gun became an extension of her body, a partner in a silent dance she had been rehearsing for years. Even so, there were moments of fear and doubt. Her heart would pound, her hands would tremble, and sometimes she would miss entirely. The first time it happened, when the bullet fell far short of the target, Lily felt a sinking sensation in her chest. She thought about quitting, about giving up because it was too difficult, too frustrating. But David was always there, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder, reminding her that mistakes were part of learning. Every miss is a step closer to a hit, he would say, his eyes kind but firm. The turning point, though, came when Lily began to dream bigger. She wanted to attempt shots farther than she had ever imagined. The thought both excited and terrified her. Could she do it? Could she really hit a target that seemed almost impossible? The very idea made her heart race, a mix of fear, adrenaline, and thrill. She spent nights lying awake, thinking about the mechanics, the wind, the angle, and the distance. It was an obsession, but a healthy one, a driving force that made her practice harder, focus better, and imagine success more vividly. David watched her with a quiet pride. He knew the journey would not be easy, and he knew the world could be harsh. People would doubt her, and many would say it was impossible. But Lily had something rare, determination and an inner calm that refused to break under pressure. Even when others laughed or shook their heads at her dreams, she held her ground, silently repeating the lessons her father had instilled in her. Patience, precision, never giving up. On the morning of what would become her first real challenge, Lily felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. She stood at the edge of the range, looking at the distant targets that shimmered in the morning sun. Her hands were steady but her heart thumped in her chest. She remembered the first day her father took her here, how small and nervous she had been, and how far she had come. Every early morning practice, every failed attempt, every whispered piece of advice had led to this moment. And yet, even with all the preparation, she didn't feel ready. The magnitude of what she was about to attempt weighed on her like a heavy cloud. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside her chest, and closed her eyes for a brief moment. She could almost hear her father's voice, calm and steady. It's not about being the best. It's about being true to yourself and doing your best. With that thought, Lily lifted the rifle, feeling the familiar weight against her shoulder. The world seemed to narrow to the distance between her and the target, the wind brushing gently across her face, and the steady rhythm of her own heartbeat. She was about to face a challenge unlike any she had faced before, one that would test not only her skill but her courage, patience, and determination. Little did she know, this moment would be the beginning of a journey that would amaze everyone, including herself. The day of the competition had finally arrived. Lily Parker stood at the edge of the range, her eyes fixed on the distant targets that seemed almost impossible to reach. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and earth, and the soft murmur of the crowd reached her ears. She felt a knot of nervous excitement in her stomach, the kind that makes your heart race and your hands sweat. She had trained for this, but the challenge ahead was unlike anything she had faced before. People whispered and glanced at her with curiosity and doubt. Many of them were experienced shooters, men and women who had been competing for years. Some smiled politely, others barely hid their amusement, and a few outright shook their heads. Lily felt a sting of doubt, but she reminded herself of everything her father had taught her. Patience, focus, and belief in herself were her strongest allies. Her coach, Mike, approached and gave her a reassuring nod. "Remember, Lily, it's about your focus, not the distance. Trust your instincts." She nodded back, grateful for his support, though she could feel her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted her stance and gripped the rifle. The target was 4,500 yards away, farther than she had ever attempted. It seemed to shimmer like a tiny dot at the horizon, almost daring her to try. Lily took a deep breath and surveyed the environment. The wind was subtle but constant, shifting slightly from left to right. She adjusted her aim, calculated her angle, and prepared herself mentally. She could hear the distant chatter of the crowd and the soft hum of engines from the vehicles at the edge of the range, but she blocked it out. In this moment, it was just her, the rifle, and the target. Her first shot rang out, the recoil jolting through her shoulder. She watched closely as the bullet fell short, missing the target entirely. Her stomach sank, and a wave of disappointment washed over her. She reminded herself to breathe, steady her hands, and focus on the next attempt. The second shot, and then the third, fell similarly short. Each miss felt heavier than the last, and the murmurs from the crowd seemed louder, more mocking. Despite the growing pressure, Lily refused to give up. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, imagining the target in her mind and feeling the rifle as an extension of her own body. She thought of all the mornings she had spent practicing, of her father's calm guidance, of every small lesson learned along the way. She could feel a shift inside her, a quiet determination that steadied her racing heart. Shot after shot, she adjusted, recalculated, and tried again. Each attempt brought new knowledge and insight. She learned to read the subtle signs of the wind, to feel the tension in her own muscles, to listen to her breathing and heartbeat. The challenge was not just about strength or skill, it was about connection, awareness, and persistence. The more she missed, the more focused she became, each failure teaching her something invaluable. As the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the range, Lily began to feel a strange calm. She had found her rhythm, a balance between tension and ease, fear and confidence. She lined up another shot, her finger steady on the trigger, and took a slow, deliberate breath. The target, distant and challenging as ever, seemed almost within reach now, not because it had moved closer, but because she had moved closer to her own focus and determination. The challenge was far from over, but Lily felt a spark of hope. She knew that mastery was not about never missing, but about learning from every miss and never losing faith. The 4,500-yard target still loomed ahead, daunting and nearly impossible, but she was ready to face it. Each shot, each careful calculation, brought her closer not just to the target, but to herself, to the understanding that the greatest challenge was believing she could succeed even when everyone else doubted her. Lily Parker took her first shot at the 4,500-yard target, and it missed. She felt her chest tighten, a mixture of disappointment and frustration bubbling up inside her. The bullet had fallen short, far from the center. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her racing heart. Around her, the crowd murmured softly, some shaking their heads, others exchanging glances. She could feel their doubt pressing down on her like a heavy weight. Determined not to let fear take over, Lily adjusted her aim and tried again. Shot number 2 missed as well. And shot number 3. Her hands began to shake, her confidence wavered, and a knot formed in her stomach. Each failure felt like it was magnified, echoing in her mind, whispering that maybe she wasn't ready for this challenge. Yet, she refused to surrender. She remembered her father's words, "Every miss is a lesson, Lily. Learn from it, don't fear it." She stepped back, breathed deeply, and tried to calm herself. The wind was unpredictable, sometimes gentle, sometimes stronger than she expected. She noted the subtle shifts and tried to compensate. The fourth shot missed again. The fifth. With every attempt, the disappointment grew heavier, but so did her resolve. Each miss was teaching her something, whether it was about the wind, the rifle, or herself. The pressure mounted. The whispers from the crowd became a dull background hum as Lily focused inward, shutting out everything else. She felt the weight of expectation, her own and everyone else's, pressing down on her shoulders. Her palms were sweaty, her arms sore from holding the rifle steady for so long, and yet she refused to back down. She knew this was the moment that would define her, the point where most would give up. But she was not most people. Shot after shot, she missed again and again, 15 times in total. Her chest heaved, her throat dry, but a strange clarity began to emerge through the frustration. The failures were no longer crushing her, they were guiding her. She could feel the rhythm of her body, the pull of the rifle, the whisper of the wind, and for the first time, a spark of understanding ignited inside her. Mike, her coach, came closer, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're learning, Lily. That's what matters. Focus on what you can control." His words reminded her that this was not about instant success but growth. She nodded, swallowing her fear, and readied herself for the next attempt. The target was still distant, seemingly impossible, but Lily Parker was no longer the nervous girl who had taken her first shot. She was a shooter learning her craft, discovering patience and focus through every miss, inching closer to mastery with each careful adjustment. After 15 misses, Lily Parker took a step back and closed her eyes, trying to steady her breath and quiet the storm inside her mind. The frustration was still there, but beneath it, she began to feel a sense of clarity. She remembered the lessons her father had taught her: patience, precision, and never giving up. Those words felt alive now, not just as advice, but as a path forward. She focused on the rhythm of her own heartbeat, listening to it in the silence. She felt the weight of the rifle in her hands, the tension in her arms, the wind brushing softly against her face. Every detail became significant, every subtle movement mattered. This was no longer about the fear of missing, it was about connection, awareness, and control. Lily felt herself becoming one with the rifle, the range, and the distant target that had seemed so impossible. She visualized the shot in her mind. She imagined the bullet flying through the air, guided by her focus, her patience, and her steady hand. Each detail mattered: the sway of the barrel, the pull of the trigger, the breath she held and released. Slowly, a sense of calm replaced the tension, a deep confidence that she could do this if she stayed present and true to her training. Mike, her coach, watched from a short distance, silently observing. He knew this was a critical moment, one that would determine whether Lily would crumble under pressure or rise above it. He saw the change in her posture, the calm in her eyes, and he knew she was ready to try again. Not just with hope, but with understanding, with awareness, and with determination. Lily took a deep breath and adjusted her stance. She lined up the rifle, measuring the wind, the distance, and the angle. She was no longer rushing or forcing the shot. She felt patience in every muscle, precision in every movement. She exhaled slowly, steadying herself, and squeezed the trigger gently. The shot rang out, a crisp, clean sound that echoed across the range. She didn't immediately see the result, but she felt it, the sense that something had changed. Something inside her had shifted. With renewed focus, she prepared for the next shot, confident that each attempt was now a learning step rather than a failure. The frustration and fear of her previous misses had transformed into clarity and determination. Lily had found her rhythm, her connection to the rifle and the target. She understood now that mastery wasn't about perfection or instant success. It was about focus, patience, and resilience, the ability to keep trying, learning, and growing, no matter how difficult the challenge. Lily Parker took a deep breath, feeling the calm she had found in the previous moments settle into every fiber of her being. The target was still 4,500 yards away, a tiny, distant mark against the horizon, but for the first time, it didn't feel impossible. She lined up the rifle with careful precision, her eyes tracing the sight, her hands steady and confident. The wind whispered softly, and she adjusted ever so slightly, accounting for every variable she had learned to read. Time seemed to stretch as she held her breath, each second filled with a tense quiet that made her pulse feel louder in her ears. She felt every muscle in her body, focused and controlled, as if the world had shrunk to the small space between her and the target. Her mind was clear, her heart steady, and her spirit determined. Years of practice, failures, and lessons had led her to this moment. She exhaled slowly and gently squeezed the trigger. The recoil went through her shoulder, and for a heartbeat, the world seemed suspended. She watched intently, eyes locked on the target, heart pounding, waiting for the reaction. And then it happened, the bullet hit the center. Dead center. A wave of disbelief, relief, and pure exhilaration washed over her. She could hardly believe it herself, her body trembling from the intensity of the moment. The crowd erupted with applause and cheers. People who had doubted her moments ago were now staring in awe. Mike, her coach, had tears in his eyes, a proud smile spreading across his face. Strangers came forward to shake her hand, pat her shoulder, and congratulate her. But for Lily, the victory wasn't about the praise. It was about the journey, about overcoming fear, frustration, and doubt to reach a goal that had seemed unreachable. In that instant, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment and clarity. Mastery was not about never missing, it was about persistence, learning from every attempt, and believing in herself even when others didn't. The 4,500-yard shot was more than a feat of skill, it was a testament to patience, focus, and courage. Lily Parker had faced the impossible and emerged stronger, wiser, and more confident than ever before. The lessons she had learned, the challenges she had overcome, and the fears she had conquered would stay with her for the rest of her life, guiding her in every pursuit she chose to face. After the cheers and applause had faded, Lily Parker stood quietly, taking in the moment. The target had been hit perfectly, the 4,500-yard shot achieved, and yet her mind was still processing everything that had just happened. Relief, pride, and disbelief mingled within her, a cocktail of emotions that left her feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. People approached her, their faces filled with admiration and curiosity. Strangers shook her hand, clapped her on the back, and congratulated her on a feat few had ever imagined possible. Mike, her coach, stayed by her side, smiling proudly and nodding. He didn't need words, his look said it all. Lily felt a warmth spread through her chest, a quiet joy that had little to do with the recognition and everything to do with knowing she had achieved something she had once thought impossible. As she walked away from the range, Lily reflected on the journey that had led her here. The early mornings, the failures, the endless practice, the frustration, and the lessons, all of it had shaped her. She realized that the journey mattered more than the result, that each miss had been a step toward learning, and every moment of doubt had strengthened her resolve. Mastery wasn't about perfection, it was about perseverance, resilience, and belief in oneself. Later that evening, as Lily sat alone watching the sun dip below the horizon, she felt a sense of peace. She had faced her fears, confronted her limits, and emerged victorious. But more importantly, she had learned something fundamental about herself, that courage and determination could turn even the impossible into reality. She smiled softly, thinking of her father, and whispered a quiet thank you for the lessons he had imparted, lessons that had carried her through every challenge. Lily Parker knew this was only the beginning. The confidence, focus, and patience she had discovered would guide her in all her future endeavors. She had proven to herself that limits are often only as real as the fear that defines them, and with determination and belief, any challenge could be met. That day, she didn't just make an incredible shot, she discovered the strength within herself to face anything life might throw her way.